My mother-in-law demanded that my 9-year-old daughter hand over her $1,600 MacBook to her cousin as a gift. She even said that if Grace refused, she shouldn't call her grandma ever again. That's when my husband finally spoke up. The why. Look on his parents' faces went pale instantly. I knew something was off the moment Grace walked through the front door. Normally, she bursts in like a tiny whirlwind, shoes flying toward the rack, backpack dropping wherever, non-stop chatter about her day at full speed. But tonight, she moved like someone walking into a museum, quiet, careful, shoulders hunched, hoodie pulled up, trying to disappear. Michael followed behind, carrying her overnight bag. My husband's face was blank, his kind of blank that hides everything. I've been reading him for years, like a menu. They're fine, he said before I could ask. Mom, Dad, Grace had a good time, he added. But Grace didn't say a word, didn't even look at me. That was not a good time. I waited. Kids sometimes just need a moment to adjust. Sometimes they're tired, hungry, or secretly plotting against the very concept of pants. Grace walked past me, down the hallway, and closed her bedroom door with a soft final click, not slammed, not dramatic, just done. I stood there staring at the door, hoping for a clue. Michael put her bag down and shrugged lightly, like we were both watching a strange documentary about our own child. She was a little quiet in the car, he said, probably tired. Tired Grace still argues about bedtime, still asks for snacks. This wasn't normal. I made dinner. Nothing fancy, just the kind of meal meant to glue the world back together. While the pasta boiled, I knocked softly. Hey, sweetheart, you hungry? Pause. Not really. Strike two. That's never just not hungry. Something had happened. Okay, I said lightly. If you change your mind, I'll leave a plate. Another pause. Okay. I glanced at Michael, scrolling on his phone like phones had answers. He looked up at me, set the phone down, rare enough that I almost took a photo. We ate at the kitchen table, just the two of us. The third chair sat empty, and it felt wrong. Every now and then, I heard a faint noise from Grace's room. Pacing, drawers opening, then silence. After dinner, I washed dishes with deliberate speed. Michael offered to dry. He wanted to help, yes, but also to stay busy, to avoid the thing none of us were naming. I dried my hands, walked down the hallway, knocked again. Grace, can I come in? A long pause. Yeah. I opened the door. She was on her bed, knees pulled up, staring at the carpet like it was a puzzle. Cheeks flushed, eyelashes damp, my heart twisted. I sat carefully at the edge of the bed. Hey, what's going on? She shrugged, not sarcastic, small, helpless shrug. Nothing. Okay, I said softly. Nothing can still feel big sometimes. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. Did something happen at Grandma Patricia's? Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. Not really. Strike three. I didn't push, didn't interrogate, just sat with her in the quiet until her breathing evened out. Do you want to read or watch something silly? I offered. She shook her head. Do you want me to stay for a minute? A tiny nod. So I stayed, sat on her bed, listened to the silence, hoping it might speak. Eventually, her breathing returned to normal. I kissed her forehead and said goodnight. Back in the kitchen, Michael leaned against the counter, arms crossed, staring into space. She okay? He asked. I don't think so, I said. Mom didn't say anything weird. Dad didn't say anything weird. It was normal, he said. Normal can be a disguise. Some families wear it like perfume. I wanted to say that, but didn't. I didn't want to start a fight about his parents when my instincts were already screaming. We went to bed. I didn't sleep. Sometime after midnight, I heard it. A tiny sound. Almost nothing. Tape. That tearing, sticky rip that only happens when someone is wrapping something. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. Michael was asleep next to me, one arm draped over his face like he wanted the world to disappear. Then I heard it again. The sound of tape, the crinkle of paper. I slid quietly out of bed and padded down the hallway. The house was dark, lit only by the faint glow of the little nightlight in the outlet. Grace's door was slightly open. A thin line of light stretched into the hall. I pushed the door gently and froze. Grace was on the floor, surrounded by scattered wrapping paper, a roll of tape, and a ribbon that looked like it had been saved from some old gift. In front of her was her MacBook, not the box, the real laptop. She was wrapping it like it was a birthday present. My stomach dropped. I felt it fall faster than anything I've ever felt, like my soul had lagged behind. "Grace," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Honey, what are you doing?" She froze, tape stuck to her fingers. Her eyes shot up to mine. For a second, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then her face crumpled. "I'm just," she whispered. I crouched beside her. "Sweetheart, why are you wrapping your laptop?" Her lips quivered. She blinked hard, trying to hold back tears with sheer force. "I'm giving it to Lucas," she said. I stared at her, my brain refusing to process it. "You're... what?" "I'm giving it to Lucas," she repeated, voice shaking. "For... his birthday?" I tried to make sense of it. Grace had wanted that MacBook more than anything in her entire 9 years. Not to play games, not to show off. She wanted it because she dreams of making videos. She edits little films the way other kids draw pictures. She's been talking about camera angles and sound effects since she could hold an iPad. That laptop wasn't a toy. It was her dream in aluminum and glass. "And you want to give it away?" I asked gently, like approaching something fragile. Grace nodded, tears finally spilling over. "It's unfair," she said. "Unfair?" My voice came out smaller than I expected. "It's unfair that I have it," she said, wiping her cheeks. "And Lucas doesn't. I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want to be bad." My chest tightened. Kids don't invent that kind of guilt on their own. They don't spontaneously decide they owe someone else their favorite thing to balance the universe. That guilt had fingerprints all over it. I sat back on my heels. "Who told you that?" Grace shook her head quickly, like the answer itself was dangerous. "Grace," I said softly, "I'm not mad at you. I just need to understand. Who told you you had to do this?" For a few seconds, she just cried quietly, her body finally giving up. Then she whispered, "Grandma Patricia." My blood ran cold. "And Grandpa George was there too," she added quickly, like fairness mattered even now. I swallowed hard. "What did Grandma Patricia say?" Grace's voice dropped. "She said it wasn't okay that I have something so fancy. And Lucas doesn't. She said a good granddaughter would share. And..." She hesitated, eyes squeezed shut. "And what?" I asked, my voice so soft it barely felt like mine. She opened her eyes, full of raw fear. "If I don't do it," she whispered. I couldn't even call her grandma anymore. A hot, wild anger rose inside me, the kind that shakes your hands, the kind that comes when someone makes your child cry to get what they want. Then I heard it. A creak behind me. Michael's sleepy voice. "Jess?" I turned. He was in the doorway, hair sticking up, blinking like he'd woken from a bad dream. "What's going on?" he asked. Grace looked at him, then down at the paper, clutching it like it could save her. "Michael," I said, my voice tight, "your mother told our child she can't call her grandma anymore if she doesn't give Lucas her laptop." He stared at me like I had spoken another language. "What?" Grace nodded miserably. He crossed the room and knelt in front of her. "Grace," he said softly, "did Grandma really say that?" She nodded again. Michael's jaw tightened. I saw something I almost never saw in him regarding his parents. Not patience, not diplomacy, not his usual urge to smooth everything. Over. Something harder. He stood up. Without a word, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. I blinked. It was after midnight. The house was dark. Our daughter was crying in a nest of wrapping paper. And my husband, my conflict-avoidant, peacekeeping husband, was unlocking his phone like he was about to do something bold, maybe reckless, but undeniably right. Michael, I started. He didn't look at me. No, he said quietly. Not angry. Just final. Grace watched him like he was stepping into a storm. I watched him like I was too. And 5 minutes later, Michael said something to his parents that changed our family forever. Something that silenced them on the other end of the line. Because for the first time in all the years I'd known him, my husband wasn't calling to keep the peace. Before I met Michael, I thought I understood family problems. In my world, family problems were annoying, not destructive. You know, the kind of stuff that makes you roll your eyes and just move on. That was until I met Michael. Michael had this calmness about him. It was like a breath of fresh air. He listened. He smoothed things over. He tried to make everyone comfortable, even people who didn't really deserve it. At first I thought, that's just who he is. And then I met his parents. Patricia and George, polished, smiling, the type of couple that made you feel welcome, but somehow like you were in the wrong place at the same time. Patricia was always praising Michael, but her compliments, they had hidden edges. You're the responsible one, she'd say, smiling. Not like some people. Some people? I never knew who she meant. But Michael? He just laughed it off. Always. The first time I realized this wasn't just my imagination was when we started talking about money. Real money. The unromantic, uncomfortable kind. We were on my couch sharing popcorn when Michael casually mentioned his student loans. I'm still paying them, he said. I frowned. Your parents didn't help at all? He didn't even look up. No. I waited, thinking he'd explain. He didn't. They paid for Kathleen's college, he said instead. Kathleen? Your sister? I asked. 3 years younger, he confirmed. So? They paid for hers, but not yours, I said slowly. Michael just nodded like it was normal. And you're okay with that? I asked. He looked at me like I was being unreasonable. Jess, she needed it more. That sentence. That became the rule. She needed it more. Kathleen was sensitive, still figuring herself out. Would crumble without help. Michael, he could handle it. He would be fine. So he did. He worked while studying, paid for his own degree. Built his career the hard way because no one was going to build it for him. Meanwhile, Kathleen kept drifting. New major, new plan, new dream. Eventually, she graduated with something she called passion. And then she married a man who drifted right alongside her. Then came Lucas. And suddenly, Lucas was the center of the universe. Patricia and George talked about him like he was the sun, and everyone else was lucky to orbit. His needs were urgent. His disappointments, treated like emergencies. Michael stayed in orbit, too. That was the strange part. Polite, helpful, useful. He supported them financially, helped Kathleen, helped Lucas. Michael and I both work in IT. We're stable, not rich, but comfortable. And yet, there was always this quiet drain. Money leaving our account like a slow, unstoppable leak. They need help, Michael would say just once. I can handle it, he'd add. Patricia. Loved that phrase. She praised him for being a good son when he gave, and acted wounded when he hesitated. George? Quiet. Let Patricia take the lead. And the favoritism didn't stop at the adults. Lucas was treated like a prince. Grace? An afterthought. Patricia could list Lucas's hobbies by heart. Grace's? She often forgot. George lit up over Lucas's sports, then casually asked Michael to cover something. Lucas had a hard year and deserved something special. Grace? A generic little gift, like she grabbed it on the way out of the store. Sometimes Patricia's voice stayed sweet, but the meaning cut sharp, like affection had to be earned. Michael didn't see it, or maybe he chose not to. And I kept telling myself, it's manageable, it's annoying, it's unfair, but it's manageable. I told myself one other thing too, without realizing it. Michael can be used, but Grace is safe. Then came Grace's birthday. We kept it simple. Family, cake, balloons. But Grace had been dreaming about video editing for months. Tutorials, Mini scripts, lighting plans, like a tiny director in training. Michael and I saved. We wanted to support her dream, not just buy a toy. So we bought the MacBook. When Grace opened it, she froze. Couldn't believe it was real. Then came this half-laugh, half-sob sound, and she threw her arms around us like we'd handed her the keys to her future. I was still holding that moment when I looked up. Lucas was watching, not excited, not happy. His face, tight, disappointed, like he'd been promised something and it went to someone else. Kathleen's smile went stiff. She didn't wait long. "Wow," she said. Too loud. "That's a lot." "It's for Grace's editing," Michael said. Kathleen waved it off. "You gave her something like that in front of everyone. Do you have any idea how that makes me look?" Her eyes flicked to Lucas. I stared at her. "How it makes you look." "I can't afford that for my son," Kathleen snapped. So now, Lucas feels bad and I look like a bad mom. Grace's excitement faltered, just a little. That's when it hit me, the stomach-turning part. The way an adult's jealousy could ripple through a child in seconds. And Patricia and George? They did nothing, not a word. They didn't stop it. Nobody said, "It's Grace's birthday." Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. George looked uncomfortable, but stayed quiet. And then, it didn't end. Comments kept coming, little jabs. "Such a princess," someone said when Grace pulled out her laptop. Patricia laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. "Your mom really spoils you," she added. There was nothing you could call out without someone saying you were overreacting. But inside me, I felt it. The resentment was building, like a storm gathering in the distance. Looking back now, that birthday wasn't just a celebration. That laptop had turned into a symbol, and some people in that room made it clear they didn't like what it stood for. The video call connected faster than I expected. Michael chose video. He didn't explain why, but I knew. If you can see someone's face, they can't pretend later that you misunderstood. They can't hide behind tone. They can't rewrite reality. I stayed off camera, just behind Michael, watching the screen. Grace sat on her bed, clutching a pillow, eyes wide, and scared. Patricia and George appeared on screen. The webcam angle was slightly off, aiming too high. Patricia leaned forward, blinked, as if she'd suddenly remembered what time it was. "Michael," she said, her cheer wobbling for half a second. "Honey, it's late." George squinted at the screen, glasses crooked, hair messy. He gave a slow, small wave. They didn't look sleepy. They looked caught, like we'd turned the lights on in a room they thought was private. Michael's voice was calm, almost too polite. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad." Patricia pasted on a daytime smile. "How's Grace? Did she have a good time with us?" My jaw tightened. Michael didn't answer right away. "We need to ask you something," he said. Patricia's eyebrows rose. "Oh?" Michael took a breath. "Grace is wrapping her laptop tonight. She said she's giving it to Lucas for his birthday." Patricia let out a small laugh, pretending it was cute. "Well, isn't that generous of her?" Michael didn't smile. "Mom, did you tell her she had to do that?" There it was, calm, direct. Patricia's face didn't change. She didn't flinch, didn't deny it. "Yes," she said, "of course." Michael's shoulders tensed. Patricia's voice grew firmer. "Michael, you gave a child a very expensive gift. She's 9. That's not appropriate. Lucas doesn't have anything like it. It's not fair." George nodded slowly, like agreeing with a conclusion already made. Michael's mouth tightened. "It's for her editing, you know that." Patricia waved dismissively. "It's still too much. Lucas wants one. He would appreciate it." Grace made a small sound in her throat like she was holding back a sob. I reached out and squeezed her shoulder. She leaned into my hand. Michael's voice dropped colder. "Did you tell Grace she can't call you Grandma if she doesn't give it to Lucas?" Patricia's smile returned, but it wasn't warm. It was sharp, like a weapon. "I told her," Patricia said, "if she wants to be part of this family, she needs to learn to share." Michael stared at the screen. "That's not what I asked." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "If she wants to be my granddaughter," she said slowly, "she needs to behave like one." Something in Michael shifted. Subtle, but real. The part of him that kept everyone comfortable vanished. He pushed his chair back and stood. Even on video, he looked tall, still, powerful. Grace's eyes widened. Mine did too. Patricia blinked, sharper this time. George sat up straighter. Michael's voice was quiet but heavy. "If you want to be Grace's grandparents," he said, "then you need to act like it." Patricia opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "Michael, it's the middle of—" "No," Michael cut in. The word landed like a door slamming. "Shut." You do not threaten a child's love to get what you want. You do not guilt her into giving up something important. And you do not use family as a leash. Patricia's face drained of color almost instantly. George's mouth opened, then closed. Silence. Not the thinking kind of silence. The stunned kind. The kind that screams, "The rules just changed." Michael held their gaze. "We're done." And then, he ended the call. No apology, no softening. Just done. I stared at him. Grace stared at him. Michael stared at his phone like he couldn't believe he'd just done it. Then he turned to Grace. He knelt in front of her. His voice softened, but his words stayed firm. "You are not giving your laptop to Lucas," he said. "Do you understand me?" Grace's eyes filled again. She nodded. Michael took her hands, gently. "You don't have to give up something you love to make adults happy. That's not what love looks like. That's not what family means." Grace's lips trembled, holding back words she couldn't say. "But Grandma..." She didn't care. "I don't care what Grandma said," Michael said quietly, and the way he said it made my stomach flip in a way that felt electric. "If she wants to be your grandma, she'll act like one," he added, not the other way around. Grace let out a shaky breath, like she'd been holding it for hours. Michael glanced at me. "We're not going tomorrow," he said softly. I nodded. No questions needed. I knew exactly what he meant. Lucas's birthday. Michael picked up his phone again, typing a short, precise message. I saw his thumb move. No arguments, no explanations, no negotiation. He just sent it. "We won't be coming tomorrow." Later, after Grace finally fell asleep, Michael sat at his computer. He looked exhausted. Not just physically, but that deep kind of exhaustion that comes from holding up a wall alone for years, only to finally realize you can put it down. "I've been paying for them for so long," he whispered. I sat beside him. "I know," I said. He swallowed hard. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that they just needed help, that Kathleen would get on her feet, that Mom and Dad would, I don't know, appreciate it. Real money, the unromantic, uncomfortable kind. He laughed once, dry, empty, humorless. And then they did this to Grace. He opened his bank app. Transfers, auto-pays, recurring payments. He scrolled through them slowly, as if reading a history of his own sacrifices. Then one by one, he started canceling them. Patricia and George, $650 month for bills, canceled. Kathleen, $400 month for groceries and rent, canceled. Lucas's activities, $220 month, canceled. Shared phone plan, $180 month, canceled. Total, $1,250 month, stopped. Michael stared at the screen for a long, quiet moment. Then he closed the laptop, looked at me. "I'm done," he said simply. "Done paying people who hurt my kid." I took his hand, squeezed it tight. "Good," I whispered. "Me too." That night, the house was quiet, not tense, just quiet. Lying in bed, one thought wouldn't leave me. Tomorrow is Lucas's birthday. We're not going. The money isn't going. And they're going to notice. The morning after Lucas's birthday, my phone buzzed nonstop. I looked at the screen and immediately regretted it. Kathleen had posted one of those long, emotional essays online. You know the kind. Never says what really happened, but somehow makes you the villain. According to her, Michael had thrown a tantrum, and cut them off right before Lucas's birthday. According to her, we'd dragged adult problems onto a child and ruined his special day. Then, she mentioned Grace, a 9-year-old. Apparently, Grace refused to help. Her cousin and that selfishness had ruined Lucas. I stared at the post, pulse racing. If you have to use a child's name to win an argument, you've already lost. Scrolling further, I saw comments. Patricia. We thought we raised him better. George. Something about being abandoned by their own son. Typed from the bills. Michael had been paying. Relatives added sad emojis and fake sympathy. A few asked what actually happened. Kathleen replied, more vague sadness, big feelings, zero facts. Michael was behind me, reading over my shoulder. He went very still. Then my phone rang. Jess, a relative at the party. Just so you know, she said softly. Lucas had a meltdown. I closed my eyes. About what? He wanted Grace's laptop, Jess said. He expected it. When it didn't show up, he screamed, cried, demanded they buy him one. It was a lot. I exhaled slowly. So, the birthday wasn't ruined by us, I said. It was ruined by a kid who didn't get a $1,600 surprise. Yes, she said. And Kathleen, she's leaving that out. When I hung up, Michael sat at the kitchen table like his knees had finally stopped pretending. Quietly, he said, they're saying I never helped. I turned to him. What? He showed me the screen. Kathleen had written, plain as day, that Michael had never lifted a finger for them, never helped, never supported. That's what hit him. Not the insults, not the smear, the rewrite. Years of responsibility, erased in one sentence. Michael didn't explode, didn't rant. He just stared at the phone, betrayed. I stayed close. Standing up to family wasn't a muscle he'd used before. It was trembling. More comments rolled in, some cheering Kathleen on, some asking questions, some enjoying the drama like free entertainment. Grace wandered into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. I flipped my phone over so fast it could have been a magic trick. She didn't need to see adults arguing about her like she was a prize. Michael watched her walk away. Something settled in his expression. He picked up his phone. I'm replying, he said quietly. I swallowed hard. He typed slowly, not furious, not messy, just finished. He wrote the truth. Grace had been wrapping her laptop because Patricia and George told her she had to give it to Lucas. Patricia said she couldn't call her grandma if she refused. Grace had been crying, terrified of losing her grandmother's love. Then he typed the part Kathleen had been counting on. Nobody asking about the money. He laid it out plainly, clean and simple. $650 a month to Patricia and George, $400 a month to Kathleen, $220 a month for Lucas's activities, $180 a month. For the phone plan, $450 a month for years. Then he added one last line. I have receipts. No screenshots, no proof posted. Just that sentence, solid and unmovable, like a locked door. He hit post. For a minute, nothing happened. Then the tone of the comments shifted. Not instantly. Not magically. But clearly. People asked, wait, she threatened a child? People said she told him his daughter couldn't call her grandma anymore. People did the math out loud. Always a dangerous day for liars. A few relatives messaged Michael privately to apologize. A couple commented publicly saying this was wrong. Adults don't weaponize love, and they certainly don't do it to a 9-year-old. Kathleen stopped replying. Patricia and George stopped commenting. For the first time since midnight, the silence didn't feel tense. It felt like relief. Weeks later, the doorbell rang. Michael and I exchanged a look, the kind married people give each other when they already know annoyance is coming. Michael opened the door. Patricia and George stood on the porch. Kathleen lingered behind them like backup. Patricia held a cake, in a clear plastic container with a grocery store sticker, like it was a peace offering picked up next to the rotisserie chickens. Hi, she said, voice sugary. We brought this for you. Michael stared at the cake, then at her. What do you want? He asked. Patricia's smile wavered. We just want to move forward. We understand now. We overreacted. George nodded like he agreed with something he hadn't even said. Patricia took a small step closer. We should go back to how things were. There it was. Michael didn't blink. No. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Michael, you're not here because you're sorry, he said, calm as a locked safe. You're here because the money stopped, and the sympathy didn't work. Patricia's face tightened. That's not... Michael lifted a hand. If you want contact with Grace, it will be on my terms. Patricia looked like she wanted to argue, but he continued. No money, he said. None. Kathleen's jaw clenched. You will apologize, Michael continued. You will behave. Visits will be supervised. You do not get private access to her. You do not get to guilt her. You do not get to threaten her. And if I hear one more request for money or one more attempt to manipulate my child, you won't see her at all. Patricia stared at him like he was a stranger. George looked stunned. Kathleen's face turned red, anger and embarrassment. Mixed. You've changed, Patricia said, voice sharp. Michael nodded once. Yes, he said. I have. Patricia held the cake out one last time, as if sugar could fix the hole where accountability should be. Michael didn't take it. Her hand dropped. They left. Not with a bargain. Not with a victory. Just gone. When the door shut, Michael exhaled slow and shaky, like he'd been holding his breath for years. I wrapped my arms around him. He hugged me back tight. In that quiet, I understood something I hadn't fully grasped before. Boundaries don't just protect children. They protect people who were trained to believe they didn't deserve any. 6 months later, our life looked completely different. Not because we moved houses, not because we won the lottery, but because we stopped paying for other adults to live. Without monthly transfers, without extra help, without the quiet financial drain, our home felt spacious. We weren't suddenly rich, but we weren't constantly calculating. We could breathe. We took Grace on extra little trips, weekend getaways, small vacations that felt special, mostly because we weren't stressed the entire time. We spent more time together as a family. Grace seemed lighter, like she no longer carried that invisible responsibility. Michael was different too, less tense, less apologetic, more grounded. He learned in a way that still amazes me that he didn't have to pay for his place in the family. He didn't have to buy peace. Patricia and George tried a few more times over the months. Small tests, little pushes, subtle attempts to slide back into the old normal. Every time, Michael held the line. Eventually, they adjusted. Now they see Grace every second week. Always. Supervised. Always with Michael and me present. No private talks, no whispered guilt. No, we'll just take her for ice cream. And the funny thing? Grace enjoys them more now because she isn't afraid. She knows we're right there. Kathleen and Lucas adjusted too. Without our money, Kathleen had to cancel extras, vacations, luxury add-ons, little upgrades they'd grown used to. They still had enough for basics, rent, groceries, utilities. What they lost was the cushion, the lifestyle boost, the sponsorship. Watching that made one thing very clear. They didn't need Michael to survive. They needed him to maintain a level of comfort they felt entitled to. Our home is happier now. Grace is secure. Michael is free from being the family ATM. Patricia can't weaponize the word grandma anymore. That word is no longer something Grace has to earn by giving things away. So, here's what I want to know. Do you think Michael did the right thing by cutting them off financially? Did he go too far or not far enough? Was supervised contact the right decision, or should we have gone no contact completely? And was I right to support him and stand behind his boundaries no matter what? His family said,